This is day 531 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor an upcoming shir or more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, we greatly appreciate it. Please contact me directly. Today we're doing still Siman Shin Chav. Chav Dalid to Lamed Beis. Chav Dalid. V'Dalid V'Yim Mishis Bar. Based on what we've explained. Those who drink hot beverages on Shabbos. Nothing but took and put sugar inside the cup. It's permitted. Just like you're allowed to put snow and hail into the cup because it's going to dissolve in the cup. Greatest, you can't crush the sugar with a teaspoon inside the cup. Volume and Yisrael said the oil was not nitzar in this. I assume today it's not okay because our sugar comes fully granulated. Beginning when it clumps up, it's not really a clump. It's just that they are got moist and therefore are clinging together. But he goes on and says, if you're allowed to crush the ice in the cup, it's not a problem anyway. Should be also here. Perhaps they only forbade it when you crush the ice outside the cup and then put it in the cup. But within the cup it's okay. It's not nicker because it's already inside the beverage. And especially with sugar which is already cooked. I'm not sure why cooking it makes it any better. But I guess because it's nishtan b'yasa already, so it's not really initial crushing. Okay, chafei. In winter when water is frozen, have to break the ice. We talk them and take water from underneath it. It's not like crushing snow. The water under the ice has not solidified. So what about breaking the ice? He said even bigger chiddush. So a person can break a barrel in order to eat a date out of it. Rabbi says if you have cost of turkey zarbachov shelo yitol yadav l'may shish ben shel gobara. He said the says you should not wash your hands in water which has snow or hail in it, and if he does, he should make sure that not in Europe, not to crush him between your hands. This Taisa says, water which freezes, there's bottom and there's hail mixed in them, and little coats. You shouldn't wash them. Because it's not possible. You're not going to crush the hail. I can show them. Why? It sounds like they're only concerned with the crushing of the snow and the hail, but not the crushing of the ice. Why? Perhaps because the ice was originally water, so it's not nolad, just going back to its original state, as opposed to borod and Shelik, since it came down from Shamayim, before it went up to Shamayim, it was water, but since it comes down as Bar and Shelik, so therefore it is a noilai. Peros, and of course, since the ice was already water, also it's no there because of coming to squeeze fruit either. We have to analyze this further. It seems that it should be Norlak, see my base, like with the the fat which congealed. Those who pray it, that's because you don't crush it with your hands. I sham. I will be a dying, but if you crush it with your hands, then it is in fact no. But language of the Shas and doesn't sound that like that. But tzarich in ladina. So the Mishnah Buras and says the Shulchan Atzei Sheitim is mako by washing your hands in the water with frozen ice and hail inside it, but make sure not to crush the ice. On the other hand, Mishnah Buras does seem to say that there is a prohibition in crushing the ice from the ice which is on top of the water which you're trying to get to. So just to puncture a hole as opposed to smash it up. Chavav, don't rub your hands with salt. Because it dissolves, it becomes water. But now with aerosol today, we have to analyze this. If it does become water, it's also. With sea salt, you actually stop it. We're not sure because like we said before, by and previously by ice. Just like it originally began as water, ends up as water, so it might be mutter. So too, obviously, the sea salt began as water, ends up as water. A person can step on snow and he doesn't be concerned. He can't escape from this, from dissolving some of the snow as you step on it. But since this is the way he's walking, it's not possible to forbid this. Because in Kenya, should be close up in our houses the entire winter. They want to go around this. If I recall correctly, the Chazon says something similar about when you have a like a logo on the bottom of your shoe. That's not, even though each time you walk, it's like a little bit of moichek, but since it's derech hilucho, and you're not absolutely moichek in any one step, so therefore it's okay. It's my recollection. Also to urinate in the snow. Even though it's going to melt by the urine. Nevertheless, since it's human needs, and in winter it's almost impossible to be careful about this, obviously, in their situations. Therefore, they didn't ban this. The Maran Butterberg explicitly allows urinating in the snow, but his Talmud, Rosh was refrained from this. Came the body because certainly will smelt some of the snow. And you're doing a Maisa by urinating there. So we're not meticulous about this. And the Rami Rutenberg, I guess, lived in Germany, which is slightly less cold than Russia. And the rush ended up in Spain, which is definitely less cold than Russia. But in a place where there's snow everywhere, how are you going to avoid it? Brackets here, brings down, Avram, Steve Tezvav, Asar, Lishbor, Kerach, Ben Nahar, Uve'er. Avram does not allow you to break ice in a river and in a well. It is astonishing. And even the Mishabur says, L'tzorach Shabbos, Yesh L'Hakil. I guess it would be Achana to do for the next day, but for Shabbos itself, it's okay. Chav you should know the squeezing can fall under the rubrics of two different avos. One of them is squeezing fruit, which is hutalam farek. It's a derivative of extraction. I'm sorry, it is the derivative of extraction. Vav shlo dash, and it falls under the of threshing. Squeezing garments, water out of and other beverages out of garments, which is a derivative of bleaching, of laundering. The Rambam writes that someone who squeezes fruit is liable because of mefarek for his baruch dinim, and then all these dinim have been clarified. Testing. He writes to somebody who launders clothing. It's the law of malabin v'chayav. And if you squeeze a garment until all the water is squeezed out of it, that's laundering v'chayav, and you're liable chliakal l'shano. Percha beis din tosvav kasav hamachabes chayim shumalabi. He writes that somebody launders is liable because of bleaching. Vasochi ksus, and somebody squeezes a garment chayim shumachabes. He's liable because of laundering. So therefore, you're not allowed to stuff up with a rag or other cloth into the mouth of a barrel or something similar to something in order to plug it. Because it might come to skita as a result. You also can't wipe something with a sponge. Unless it has a handle, so you won't come to squeeze it. A It can cover a barrel of water, some other beverage, with a garment which is not designated for that purpose. Because if it's designated for any other purpose, you might come to squeeze it out. Ad kan l'shon. End quote. Vodis bar b'zeh, and this will be clarified as we go along. Kav ches, Rabbi Sena Bali HaTosfos chilku kam schitas ha'begel shleim. The Tosfos divide up squeezing a garment into two aspects. The shesochto mean mayim, when you squeeze out water, having mishum labin, that's bleaching. Shesochto mayim v'shem, when you squeeze out wine or oil, v'sharim mashkin, other beverages, shem mechavzik g'van, which are not used to launder garments, despite the fact that it says by Yehuda, based by Yayim Suso, that's a special bracha, but normally don't do it. For either on the country, but tafin l'sam, it makes them dirty. And not, I guess, not just dirty, but it leaves a smell in the garment. So that wouldn't be relevant to talk about bleaching. So the answer in this case is that in this case it's talking is of extraction. You're extracting the beverage from the garment. Just like when you squeeze olives and grapes. Therefore, this problem you might come to squeeze. Low shaykh b'mrak b'mayim. It's only relevant by water. She's chetenik de labno, that you're going to squeeze out in order to cleanse. Ava b'yayim b'shem, but with wine and oil. Lo chashin shem yisro. We're not concerned that you might come to do schita, because it's very rare that you actually are concerned to express those beverages. And anyway, when you squeeze out the wine and oil from the garment, it gets lost. Because Lo Shaykh was at Mefarik, so therefore the Mefarik is not relevant here. But we see, even though it's inevitable that the wine and oil is going to be squeezed out, have the Psik Reish Lo Nichal, says the Psik Reish Lo Nichal, you have no interest in this. On the contrary, you much rather the wine or oil not be there, so therefore it's not a problem. Chavtes, Chasa Magir Mishnah, Perktes Ninav, Rashba is coming to Livrei. Magir Mishnah writes that the Rashba agrees, but Ramban Cholek on him, but the Ramban disagrees. B'zel Shona Ramban says, so anytime you squeeze fruit, it's the derivative of extraction when you need the beverage. The shear and the shear is the size of a date. And there's no threshing other than with gedule karka. Such as fruit and anything similar which goes from the ground. Somebody squeezes a garment to let us sovea. It's a derivative of dyeing. Just like bleaching. And this is true in whatever you use to launder. Even with wine. Like we say by Shemitah, the fruit has to be to eat. It can't be used for soaking or for laundering. So we see that you can launder in Perush Shemitah. What is that? It must be its wine. As long as there's some sort of cleansing activity. I guess especially using wine to in order to sterilize the garment or something like that. So then you certainly would have an interest in it getting it going through and coming out on the other side. The and the shear of laundering is the shear of a double seat, which is I think we said is 412 or 212. I don't remember. By a weave, it is 3 by 3. It's both like the shear for taking out on Shabbos from Rishus to Rishus. Kinyan zeh kosav Rambam. Including Rambam something similar. Akal Shon, end quote from the Ramban. So Arukh HaShulchan says, don't think because it says Tlo Sovea that's something different than what we saw till now. Love Zafka. Doesn't mean that literally. Ela Minesham Malabin, it could be Sovea, but since Malabin is a type like Sovea, I'm Eina Tlos Malabin, but Eina Tlos Malabin, but it's only really a Malabin, not of Sovea, which is something different. Lamed, Tiani Rabbeinu Beis Yosef. The Mesimin Shinu Tasif Yud Kasav, the Mayim also Sanam B'Sidurim Melishim Libun. Beis Yosef says you're not allowed to strain water through fabric because of Libun. Aviyan Shai Mashkemuta, but wine and other beverages are okay. The man Lo Shai Libun, because by them there's no Libun. That's like Tosis and those who go with him. But here he says, you're not allowed to put a cloth on top of a barrel, and put on top of it the ladle, because you might come to squeeze. I beg to the first mutter, but a garment which is a cloth which is normally used on the wine barrel, that's okay. You're not concerned with it, how clean it is in order to squeeze it. You should clarify it's only by water, because by wine it's not a problem. By wine there's no issue with schita because it doesn't get clean. And generically, a barrel like that we're talking about here should be wine. And it's astonishing that the Rambam does mention specifically water. Well, that is perhaps that's only because the makar of the halacha in the Gemara is talking about water. So evidently, Beis Yosef is not concerned. Didn't feel the need to specify, but it is only water which is an issue. It's out. Now to press fabric. Mukin is like fabric. It's like cotton. In the opening of a vessel which has beverages in it, because of squeezing. According to the Rambam and Ramban, Hasishapin makes sense. Because there's Islam Labin. Avodas says Eno El Shitzorich Lanischat. But it's only an issue when you need that which is squeezed out. The Behol Echliba is going to be lost. Mutter b'yayim Hashem kol mashkin l'vayim mayim. It's okay by wine, oil, and all the beverages except water. Ayin kosh kasavnu. We'll see if you zayin kosav sfog a mechanical. He says the sponge now to use to wipe. And can yeshlo base achiza gizera shema yal iskor. Let's say somewhere to hold it. Gizera shema iskor. That's what the base Yosef writes. The Lashon Rambam, that's the name of Rambam Sheivenu. B'siv Chav Zayin. The Rambam Asi Shapir. The Rambam works out well. Other places ain't a little bit mine, but according to this, it's only by water. Or b'yayin b'shemen, or by wine and oil. K'shitzorich l'nischat. We need that which is being squeezed out. K'mosh kosavnu. Avagam the Rambam kosher, but even according to Rambam it's difficult. Sheikosav ba'atzmo, the b'davar miuchel l'chach lo chashin shem yischol. He agrees that something is uniquely designated for covering the barrel, whatever. We're not concerned squeezing. So why are we concerned with the sponge? You have to say that a sponge, it's inevitable you're going to squeeze out. But if it has a handle, it's not necessary that you do that. He writes if it has a handle, even though you're squeezing out, it's not really a handle, it's considered to be squeezing out. It's like pouring out of a plate. Meaning that it's not as if derech skita. Labes, Kasar Rabbeinu Beis Yosef Sifu Yudches. Chavish Shepoko B'kak Shel Pishton, a barrel which is stuffed with a cork of linen. You still nekvish to close a hole in its side. Shemotzim Bo Yain, from which you will take out wine, and this uses to close it up. Yeshim Mishimati Lasir allows people out to remove it. Abushi of Shalo Shlo Yisrael, even if it's not possible, you're not going to squeeze out a bit. As long as underneath it there's no vessel. Since you're not deriving any benefit from this squeezing, situation where you don't want the results, and it's permissible. Of those who argue, even though you don't want it, it's inevitable, it's awesome. The world is not heter to use a cloth to stop up a hole which is used to pour the wine. You can be melamed schus in this. Since the spigot has a long faucet outside the not sure I understand it's here. I guess the plug is in between the barrel and the spigot. So that's what ores. That's what it sounds like. It's mutter, and therefore you can't get in to touch the cloth. I guess the cloth they removed somehow with some string or something. It's mutter. It's like a sponge which has a handle. Since this is not a great justification and it's unclear, it's best to make sure they conduct themselves that there's no vessel underneath the barrel, poking the neck when they close up the hole. So it's a bit cryptic, and tomorrow we're going to see how the Arukh HaShulchan goes on to explain it.